So back in March, this was everyone's vision of working from home. It was being in your PJ bottoms, being able to have breakfast leisurely while you're logged in and connecting to work. If we advance the slide, what the reality looked like was an overwhelming amount of Zoom meetings and quickly being able to lose sight of the day. The day suddenly gets longer. I know for me personally, I work with a lot of people from California that were accustomed to having, 60 to 90-minute commutes in the morning. So things would be very quiet until they got in the office, and then they would all cut out early afternoon to beat the traffic back home. With all of those colleagues now suddenly available to do Zoom calls during those timeframes, my day got exponentially longer. And we're hearing that that happens for a lot of people. There was nothing else to do. You couldn't freely go out to restaurants and do things. So people poured themselves into work, or their workplaces were quickly trying to retool everything to go virtual. So it was all hands on deck, and suddenly the days got really long. So if we go ahead and advance to the next slide. By May 2020, the term Zoom fatigue had been coined. So there's actually several studies that show that this is a real thing. It has to do with seeing yourself on the screen for hour after hour during the day. It's things like constantly having to stay on mute and finding the mute button to come off mute to be able to respond to colleagues. It was just a matter of fact that everyone was always expecting camera on. Employers that weren't accustomed to having their employees work from home felt that it was very important for the employees' sake and their sake that when we were on during meetings for everyone to have cameras on so that you could be engaged and make sure people were paying attention. I can tell you, or at least from this person who's normally working at home, prior to March 2020, I had maybe 2 colleagues in a company of 9,000 that would normally request cameras on for meetings. So prior to that, we never did that. We would talk, we would chat, we would share PowerPoint presentations, but very rarely did we do cameras on. So suddenly, my days got longer, and I had to be up and hair and makeup done and at least dressed from the waist up every day. So advance the slide, please, Melinda. So how are you going to battle meeting fatigue? You got to spice those meetings up. You got to, in doing this, there's a lot of benefits to making these virtual events more engaging, and it can be increasing team camaraderie, it can be building rapport with partnerships, extending your brand's reach, generating future leads, and also serving as a thank you. So here's what one of our early Zoom meetings looked like at Juniper Networks. This was a happy hour. We had many of those during March, April, May. Teams would have them within teams. It would be cross-functional teams. So it was happy hour, BYOB. You were literally encouraged or enabled to have an alcoholic beverage, a non-alcoholic beverage, whatever you had handy that day. We incorporated a lot of fun interactive elements like games, Q&A with executives. They used polls, quizzes, chat, and lots of icebreakers were included. A couple of examples, I remember we did a cross-functional bingo one day. They actually used an online site that creates free bingo cards to incorporate all of the bingo boxes were elements of our technology. And so they would actually pull elements of our technology, and they created fun ways to win the bingo. They would do the entire card, they would do the X's, they would do the outside boxes. There were multiple ways that you could win, and of course, there was swag, there was prizes for the winners. So it was such a fun time. We were able to bring a beverage. You were on that with executives and teammates, and cameras were on, and actually our president and CEO actually dropped by for about 5 minutes during our team bingo event. So lots of fun, lots of team bonding and camaraderie just by adding, a game, a happy hour, and just setting up something that was a little bit more interactive for our employees. Let's go ahead. Another example is a holiday party. We did an escape room with our executive team. This was so much fun. We started with a 5-minute icebreaker that was actually a themed scavenger hunt. what we did for this was we had pre-organized the teams because we knew we were going to do a virtual escape room, and we actually hired a vendor to help us with that, and they were fantastic, and I'll share that information with you in the end. But we knew that the teams would be broken up into 4 to 6 people, and we had 10 teams. So we came up with 5 themes for the teams that were all holiday Christmas related. Now we're a global team, so we tried to honor diversity. So there was a winter holiday vacation, a summer holiday vacation. There was Christmas PJs for the traditional holiday fam jam. We did a Christmas holiday princess theme. And the last one escapes me right now, but we had 5. So we came onto the call. No one knew that there was going to be this icebreaker. They did know that they were broken into teams. So we flashed up a screen and said, you know, these are your teams. Look at your team number and look at your theme. If your theme was winter holiday, you had 5 minutes to go off camera, grab anything you could to make you look like you were going on a winter holiday, and come back. And then we had the teams flash up together, just their photos, and we judged which team did it better. So you had Team A versus Team B, and they both had winter holiday, the same for beach, etc. People had so much fun, you know, coming up with their items. You can see we have a beach hat at the top, we have a cowgirl hat to the side, a couple of winter hats there, and some stuffies for the PJs. Just a great way to open that meeting and get everybody really active and involved. And then we went right into the escape room where the team from We Crush Events had one person assigned to each team that led us through a series of tasks that we had to solve to make our way out of the escape room and back to the main group. It was phenomenal because we had executives or managers assigned to each group, and it allowed them to see some of the skills some of their employees had. So just a great event all the way around. Let's go ahead and advance. Another one is friendly competition. So not everything has to be an escape room to be an event that would be fun. If you're doing something with your team, or even potentially with an extended team outside your organization, it can be as simple as the best Zoom background. You just pre-announce before your meeting that the individual that shows up with the best Zoom background is going to win. You can put together a poll to allow people to vote. So the picture that you're seeing here was our Halloween event. So we did do the best Zoom background, we did the best costume, we did the least effort for those of people that were not comfortable dressing in a Halloween costume and going on camera. They could go for the least effort category. We did do some holiday trivia, and team scavenger hunts was what we did in the prior slide that I shared. So just some ideas there. Most of these things are free. Of course, you can spice it up and make it a little more fun by offering prizes, which most of our events did have some sort of a prize. It was a $25 gift card or swag, or in some areas it was just bragging rights. So lots of fun, once again, out of implementing friendly competition to spice up a team meeting. Next slide. Sending swag to hype up events to attendees. Now we're going kind of transitioning from internal meetings to if you're entertaining customers, or in my instance, we sell all of our products through a partner channel. So we have a partner advisory council. So in order to get those attendees to join us in the virtual world for an event, takes a little bit more planning, putting together the swag boxes that they would normally get when they joined us in person for these awards events and these activity council meetings, but it can be done. So as long as you back up that timeline, start your planning ahead of time, and allow your attendees to know, what to expect in the format of the event, this is certainly something that can be done. You see there we have 2 very nice packages available. Our Elevate customer event had champagne to celebrate their award, a glass to pour that champagne in. The little rocket man was to go along with the Elevate theme. The orange juice is because we are actually making mimosas because it was a morning event. There's a little recipe card that goes along with that. On the right-hand side, Our Partner Advisory Council, again, morning meeting kickoff. So we sent them a coffee kit. So you can work these themes right into your meeting and still reward your customers and partners for joining you for an event by sending them a package ahead of time. Just takes a little bit of coordination with your promotional product vendor and then getting the addresses ahead of time, which is fairly easy to do during registration. If you let them know that by responding, you will be able to provide them a gift. I am ready for the next slide, Melinda.
It's there.
Thank you. Another one is prospecting. So here's another angle on creative events. And this is actually one I was invited to. And I actually invited Melinda to join me for this event in December. So we experienced this one together. It was a company that was interested in speaking with me about our content management systems that we use internally for our marketing products. They actually leveraged a LinkedIn conversation ad. So when I logged into LinkedIn one day, they popped up this ad indicating that I was invited to this virtual event and there would be a wine tasting. Well, they got my attention when they said wine tasting, and I'm reading through it. I'm like, are they really going to send me wine for this event? Sure enough, they sent me a box with 4 bottles of wine. A couple of them were smaller bottles of wine. One of them was a full-size bottle of wine, and we had this wonderful event where they sort of allowed us to network with other prospects that were in the room. We were able to get to know each other a little bit. They did a brief introduction and technology education section throughout each course of the wine tasting, but did share ample information with us about each wine. They had a wonderful sommelier hosting the event. It was a bit of a research event for me. I wanted to see how well that format would work, but I actually ended up being interested in their product as well. So it was actually 100% on target from their perspective. I've also seen this done with things like illusionists. I've attended a couple of those events where companies will come on, they will do a 20-minute pitch, and then they have an illusionist come on and go through a series of magic tricks. And you would think, okay, how interesting is that if it's in the virtual world? I will tell you, he blew my mind. I was actually picked from the audience. I was not prepped ahead of time or part of their event, but we went through a couple of episodes where I had to run to my purse, bring out some cash. They guessed how much cash that I had, and the guy was totally like on the money with what I had. And then later at the end of the event, he picked about 10 different people in the group and asked them to throw out random numbers. And as they would throw out random numbers, he had a calculator and he was adding it up, adding it up, adding it up. And at the end, he asked me to pull out my $20 bill that he had earlier asked me to write the company that had sponsored the event, their name on that $20 bill. And I did that. He said, read the serial number. And I kid you not, the number that he had on his calculator was exactly the serial number to my $20 bill. So amazing. Everybody that was on the event had such a great time. And for that event, they had actually invited kids and family members to participate too. So another way that you can get people to join your event is by opening it up to family members and spouses. Another one I won't go into great detail about, but I've also participated in a cooking experience along those same lines. They shipped in a recipe card, a few tools, a cookbook, told you what items to get, and we literally took our laptops to the kitchen and made this together and had wonderful conversation. So there's lots of fun events that you can do, and you can add a business and a prospecting or customer appreciation element to it. Next slide, please.
Do you see it?
There it is.
Okay.
There might be an issue on my side, and this is the older deck, so I apologize. I did make a few changes, but we'll just work with this slide. Virtual event resources. So now that you've had some ideas, hopefully that sparked some thoughts, and you're willing to be that ambassador of fun within your organization, how do you get started? So here is a series of resources that you can use. We Crush Events is who we did the virtual escape room with. Airbnb, believe it or not, has a ton of events now that they do, and they range from free to like $10, $11 a person, upwards to higher dollar values depending on the type of event that is. 1-800-Flowers and Alice's Table have teamed up together to do floral arrangements, and they have those events, and they will actually ship in the flowers and the scissors, and they will have someone come online with you and your team, and you can do flower arranging together. TripAdvisor, Viator, and there's a number of game sites out there that will help you do things. I know personally we've done some great team events, inclusion and diversity events around things like 3 Truths and a Lie, trivia, word clouds. Our best probably diversity example was we asked several teammates during the holidays to each come on and share one PowerPoint slide that they make that is all pictures about them and their traditions and their family and how they celebrate. It was a global event and so much fun. We learned so much about all of the different cultures represented by our team, and it was just a very interesting way to swap recipes and stories and family traditions. Next slide. This is an example of some of the We Crush events options that they offer. They have mindful meditation and mindfulness, yoga. They do a magician as well. So there's lots of wonderful things that they have that you can use. Just wanted to give you some examples there. And next slide. Airbnb. Again, you can see the prices on some of these events are quite low. And to polish these events off, I always encourage including swag, and then Melinda's always a great resource for that, someone that I've trusted over the years to build boxes that are very presentable, packaged well, and have great logo items to support the events that we're doing. Next slide, Melinda.
This one wasn't complete, sorry.
Okay, that's fine. I will share the final deck. The Mixing Business with Pleasure is for your next event. So this is where we kind of jump into, again, I hope that this has sparked some ideas. Some of the suggestions and tips that I would have for you is think about your platform, plan ahead, and allow plenty of time because doing virtual events is much more time consuming than planning actual in-person events. I know that's something that my team and I have really struggled with. You have to really backdate everything, allow time for getting your branded swag, shipping the branded swag, collecting the addresses before you do the shipping, really thinking through who is your audience and what experience do you want them to have. Are you entertaining customers? Are you doing an employee team bonding or inclusion diversity event? Are you looking to attract prospects? If you're looking to attract prospects, you're probably really going to have to up your game. With customers and employees, you can do some of the lower level activities to get people to participate. And I'm sorry, my computer keeps cutting out. I don't know if you guys are seeing that, if I'm going blank, but I am here. So at this point, I'd like to open it up for questions. And I know that we do have a fun activity waiting for us tonight. But if there's questions, I would love for you to come off mute and let's have some discussions about examples of things you've tried or something you might be excited to try in the future.
Actually, Tina, we're going to need to take a little bit of a side trip first. So sorry about that. But you know how COVID has changed plans on a variety of things in our lives. That's the case here. Our mixologist has someone on his staff who is down with COVID. And so we're needing to move to this time frame right now so that we can get him in and back to work. So I'm going to introduce our mixologist, Jeff Otterson. Jeff is currently the general manager of, I'm hoping I'm saying this right, Jeff. If not, you should correct me, but Aurorum? Aurum, boy, that was a lot easier than I thought. Of Aurum Food and Wine, located in Steamboat Springs, Colorado. Aurum is part of the restaurant company Destination Hospitality, which has several locations in the ski resort markets of Colorado. His duties include designing cocktail menus and creating wine lists for the restaurant, as well as assisting sister companies and updating the beverage menu seasonally. In 2019, pre-COVID, remember, Jeff entered a cocktail competition and took first place, which was and the reward was a 2-week trip to Spain. That was a good contest there, honey. This winter at Orem, 4 private dining yurts were built to help combat the challenges posed by COVID to his company, as well as the entire restaurant industry, as we know. Next winter, Jeff will be taking over the Carlin and Breckenridge, which will house a cocktail lounge, event space, and fine dining restaurant. It will also house 4 nightly rental luxury suites. So when COVID is on a different plane, we can all go to Breckenridge and see Jeff. So Jeff, it's all yours.
Okay, perfect. First of all, nice to meet you guys in these unusual circumstances. Can everybody give me a thumbs up if you can hear me, first of all? Okay, good. So I'm going to walk you through basically this kit that Melinda was nice enough to put together for everybody. So to make sure we all have the same things in front of us, I'm going to show you guys what's in front of me. First, we have the shaker with the shot glass measure on top. Everybody got that?
Yep.
All right, perfect. Then we have a rocks glass that we're going to drink out of.
If everybody wants to unmute, you can do that too, so that if you have questions along the way, you can just jot them out.
Definitely. We should have a recipe card as well. Okay. We're going to have a paring knife that I pulled out of the tube just a second ago. We have a cutting board. Some hand wipes for after we use the citrus so we don't get all sticky here. And then we're going to run through the booze we have. So we should have Saint-Germain, the Elderflower Liqueur. We should have Aperol. We should have the bitters in the eyedropper. And the tequila. Also some citrus that I hope we all have as well. We've got a lemon and grapefruit. Everybody on board?
Sure are.
Perfect. All right, we'll start a little bit here. We kind of went over a few different drinks that we think would be good. This was sort of a practical one and also one that is really good. You know, it's balanced. It's a little bitter to it. There's quite a bit of lemon juice to it, but it does have a full, shot and a half of tequila. And the Saint-Germain is what we're going to use to sweeten it up, to balance out the citrus, basically. That was sort of the idea behind it. So when we build cocktails, we want to start with the least expensive ingredient and go up. That's just a good way when you're bartending, in case you're building something, you screw something up. That way you're not dumping a really expensive liquor, you're just getting rid of some juice or something like that. It's a lot easier. So if you want to look at the recipe card, we'll actually start at the bottom where it says 2 dashes of Angostura bitters. Bitters is something that I often call, it's like the bartender's spice rack. It's like your salt and pepper to your drink to kind of bind everything together. I think most cocktails at craft cocktail bars have a really big version of these. There's a million different kinds. Angostura is like by far the most popular and just the most useful for everyday applications. So we're going to take that, open it up, get yourself a nice big eyedropper, and then we'll go right into our mixing glass here, okay? So we'll do 1, and we're actually going to do 2 of those. There we go.
We're doing
I'll take
2
it kind of
cups.
slow. If we're going a little too fast, just someone like wave or something if we're behind a little bit, okay?
Is it 2 drops or 2 full eye drops?
Droppers, yeah. Okay. I like a lot in there. I think it's just, it's a nice flavor to have in there, personally. Next, we're gonna take our lemon and put it right on your cutting board. And with that paring knife, just cut it right in half. So you should have half a lemon here. Now take your shot glass, and you can see right on the, kind of in the middle, there's that marker where it says 1 ounce on it. We're gonna squeeze lemon juice in there until we get to 3/4 of an ounce. So about, 1/8 of an inch below that is pretty much how much lemon juice you want in there. So go ahead and kind of start squeezing that in there. If you get a seed in there, it's not a huge deal.
Mine has a seed.
That's okay. Don't worry about the seeds. So we're probably going to have to use an entire lemon. Generally, about half a lemon is about half an ounce of juice if you get a nice juicy lemon. All right, so I'm pretty much right there. So I'm just going to pour that right in the mixing glass, just like that. Now you might want to take your little towelettes here. If your hands are sticky, you can pull that out and give yourself a nice wipe. All right. Is everybody pretty much at that step right now? Pretty good? Okay, perfect. All right, now we're gonna move up to the Saint-Germain Elderflower Liqueur. Some of the drinks we were looking at did require us to make like simple syrups and things like that. And we wanted to avoid that with you guys having to like, use hot water and, sugar cubes and all that stuff. So this is gonna be our sweetening agent to the drink, all right? This is what's gonna provide your sweetness to balance out all that citrus we just put in there. Melinda actually portioned these out to be the correct amount. So there's no need to measure, there's no need for anything like that. Whatever is in your bottle, just go ahead and put that right in there, okay? The whole thing.
Which bottle are we putting in? I'm sorry.
The Saint-Germain, yeah, this one right here, if you can see it. With the
Kinda
blue.
like a amber color bottle.
Yep.
The whole bottle, right?
Yep, whole
Yep.
bottle. Don't be shy. Okay, next we are going to go to Aperol, which I'm sure some of you are familiar with. Aperol is an Italian liqueur. It's slightly bitter. The name actually comes from aperitif. It's generally something that people in Italy drink before dinner. I'm sure you guys maybe had an Aperol spritz, super delicious drink. This is gonna add a little color and a little bitterness to it at the same time as well, okay? So we'll put that whole thing in there.
Smells good already.
Oh yeah, definitely. All right, next we are gonna take our little shooter airline bottle of tequila here. And this is portioned out. It's just like a touch over what we need, but we're gonna make it a stiff cocktail, so it's fine. Just put the whole thing in there, all good.
Everybody's home. You don't have to drive anywhere, right? We're good. Mike's putting his big bottle in.
There we go, I like it. There's it, nice. Okay, so now we can take our glass. I hope you guys have some ice near you. So you can kind of give it a smell and you see what we're going to be looking at a little bit. Pretty pleasant. So let's take some ice. Let's go right in, just like that. Pretty much so it's full with ice there.
I couldn't figure out how to send you ice. That was impossible. Sorry.
All right, we gotta adapt in these times.
Yeah, that's right.
So you're gonna go right over the top with that, and then don't forget, you want to take that shot glass and go right over the top of that, so you don't spill anything when we shake this. Okay? So it's all good to go. Give it a nice good shake. Generally, when we shake, we want the ice to be taken over by the liquid. That's how you know when it's done, all right? All right, so that's good. Now set that down, and in your rocks glass, if you have it near you, put another fresh scoop of ice in there, okay? So we're full to the brim of just ice. And then take off your shot glass from the top, remove that, and just go right on top, just like that.
Yeah.
All right. I'm betting most of those seeds probably stayed in the shaker, which is good. So then we're almost done. We're going to set this down and then pick up your grapefruit. And then with your paring knife, set it down on the cutting board, and you're going to go and just cut a nice big slice of just the flesh of the grapefruit, really. We're going to use that to garnish it, okay? This is a really sharp knife, actually, too.
They're the best knives.
Yeah, seriously. So now we have our twist, okay? Just like that for grapefruit. Now, what you want to do when you go over the top of the drink is go right on the top and twist it. So you see some of the oils release from the grapefruit into the cocktail, okay? That's going to provide something on the nose when you drink it. And then give it a little stir.
Are you straight on top?
And yeah, just jump it right on top, definitely. Perfect.
Okay. Cool.
All right, and then we should be all set to go, and we can all say cheers, right? Over
Cheers.
at the computer.
Is everybody
Cheers.
ready? Yay.
Cheers.
Pretty good, right? Refreshing, easy to drink. You don't get like a ton of too much. It's nice and balanced. You don't get too much tequila. There's not too much citrus. I think it's just a really well-rounded thing to enjoy.
So Jeff,
Best meeting ever.
Good.
Right?
I know.
Exactly.
Yeah, my staff is lucky. We do a lot of this before work and everything and during, so it's a different vibe out here, that's for sure.
Did you come up with a good way to tie in the part-time lover title here for this drink with?
I mean, yes and no. It's personally one of my favorite Stevie Wonder songs. I don't know, that's sort of what I think of when I again, it's just it's very agreeable. It's just easy to drink. That's what I didn't want something that was too much or too little. I think it's a crowd-pleasing cocktail, so I don't know. We went with that. But
We're
Any
near
questions
Valentine's Day.
any
Other-
questions for me?
Yeah, questions?
So how did Melinda find you to do this?
So actually, my cousin-in-law has known Melinda for a very long time. I did one of these for them a few months ago during the first quarantine, where it was like 8 different couples, and we did like 3 cocktails, and they had like and it was so funny because like, you know, by the 3rd cocktail, people were like obviously just hammered, you know, so it was pretty entertaining. But he actually recommended me to her when she was looking for somebody, so it just kind of fell into place that way. I do quite a bit of this in person. Out here, we definitely do like cocktail classes. Obviously not now, but pre-COVID, we did a lot where they would come into the restaurant or I would go to somebody's house. The place I live is a very, it's a resort community. So there's a lot of like, you know, second homeowners and things like that. During the winter, our town actually quadruples in size because of the ski resort. So it's very seasonal. But people like, you know, they just love this kind of thing. You go to their house, and actually a private friend, a chef who just does private events, her and I would kind of tag team this thing where she would do the food and I would do the wine and the cocktails, and we would work together and kind of do these little side hustles and stuff. So it was really fun. Just nice to get out of the restaurant and try new things and meet new people. And yeah, it's a great experience.
That's a lot of fun.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, so actually,
What's up?
Jeff is actually the cousin of my cousin's wife. So, well, our cousins are married, is what we're saying.
Yeah.
But we've never met. This is the first time I've seen Jeff. We've just talked on the phone and email and so on. But he knows his business, so it was great. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. I hope you guys enjoy it. Be safe, stay healthy, take care of each
Thank
other.
you.
Definitely.
Thank you. That's
you.
awesome. Thank
Thanks.
you.
Have a good
Thank
evening.
you. Thank you.
Bye. Awesome. Whew. All right. Anybody have any questions, comments? What do you think about this? Can you see yourself using this in your business in any way?
Yeah, so Melinda, can you talk a little bit about, he talked about the alcohol. You portioned that out, or how complicated is such a thing?
So I wanted to make sure I was covering my backside, because for me, this was really a good experience for me, so that if someone came to me and said, hey, we want you to do this, I knew where I could go. There's a lot of things when you're working with alcohol that you have to know about, and I don't know any of that. So I reached out to someone, and they suggested that I go and talk to this man who has a wine business in Findlay. And so I went to talk to him. He has a license to ship alcohol that is required. His license is through FedEx. I think it's probably going to be a little harder right now to get a license from one of those places because of all the hand sanitizer that's also floating around out there.
Yeah.
It is, that factors in as well too. So we were able to use his license. He shipped them out for us. That's why you probably saw in your box it came from the wine merchant in Findlay. They also are currently in Ohio. Well, you guys are all in Ohio. In Ohio, they have allowed where you can now walk into a place, get a drink and walk out with it. So they could physically make you an entire drink and you could walk out of the store with it. It didn't used to be that way. But now, so what they're doing is they're actually rebottling things themselves. So you could call them and say, I want all the ingredients for a part-time lover. And they would say, okay, give us, a half hour, whatever, and come on by. And they would make it into the smaller bottles like you saw, similar to that. And you can come in, pick up all the ingredients and go home and make it yourself if you'd like. So it was a perfect mix for us, for, a good connection for me with him, because we took everything to him. He has a restaurant as well as a wine shop. And so he was able to wash all of our bottles, in his commercial dishwasher. So, which was great. I want to make sure they were all washed first, and then they rebottled them all. I went back and picked them up, and then, we put everything together in the box. So all of you, of course, found out that some of our fruit, that was an experience as well for us as well, that my fruit started to deteriorate, which really means it started getting moldy. And I was so worried that everybody else's was going to be the same way. So we're actually doing another one of these next week for a marketing group in Toledo that we're sponsoring. And so we've made some changes in that shipment. There's now a note on the top that says, take your fruit out and put it in the refrigerator right away.
I was so good in not opening my box.
I know. Kendra said to me, you're killing me, Melinda, come on. Open this box.
And I will just add, I've done a lot of these mixology events, and usually what they send is everything but the alcohol. So to take out some of that complexity, they'll send you the recipe card. They'll send maybe the cutting board that has your brand on it. They'll send some of the other, like a nice glass is always good to have, with the logo on it. And then they'll just say, please have these things available. And what we've done a lot is we pick recipes that can be made alcoholic or virgin. That way, if the people that are participating with you, maybe they want to try a spritzer, a non-alcoholic spritzer, or you can add the alcohol in it for the people that want the alcohol. So it's a great way to go that kind of accommodates both markets. And then you just rely on the recipient to gather, and then you got to stick to maybe more simple recipes, a vodka, maybe a whiskey or a bourbon that everyone might have. I actually, though, did have one at Christmas. It was a competition and it was a team competition. So 2 different people, just regular everyday employees, came up with their own ingredients and gave you 2 recipes. And so you shopped for and had those items, and then you could participate. So lots of different ways you can flex that and still make it engaging and interesting without having to ship the alcohol, which is the really difficult part.
Yes, it's very difficult. Anybody else? What do you think? Can anybody see ways that you can use this in your business?
Well,
I think
Melinda,
our
you know
alumni-
that. Oh, you know that we did some of that at Mercy Health. So we always have a big anniversary kind of celebration. It's a whole meal, and obviously we couldn't do that. So we did ship, as you know, meat and cheese, and we used local vendors with a cutting board and some glasses. We didn't send the alcohol, but we did have an event then and did a cheers that night with them and their families. So it worked really well. We didn't get the number of participants that we obviously would have had in person. And honestly, it was kind of during the political turmoil. So there was other things on people's mind. But for those who attended, it was really nice.
Good.
I think this
I
would
think
be
our
great.
alumni would. Oh, go ahead, Kim. Go ahead.
Sorry. I think this would be great to do if you had an anniversary to celebrate during these crazy times, like sort of like Beth said, with what they did at Mercy Health. I think any kind of special anniversary that you didn't want to just wait a whole year to celebrate, this would be cool to send some champagne and, some crackers and cheese or something like that.
Sure.
See, I think our alumni would do this. I don't know if I could send this to prospective students. And
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe
Well,
I need to send it to the parents.
You may
know.
see an increase in enrollment. I'm just saying.
There was, we have trying to encourage people to come to training that we require. We will send them snack packs to get them to sit through the 90-minute training. So we'll send them ahead of time an energy bar. We try to stay away from things like nuts where there might be an allergy, but we'll send them together some items and maybe an energy drink. So with students, they love energy drinks and anything free. So you could send them something like that and then maybe ask them to tune in for a virtual tour or an update or an orientation. Something along those lines might help. And obviously having anything with your logo on it that stays in their house is always a positive. So finding out what that item might be.
Yeah.
I was just curious if between Melinda and Tina and, Cindy, any of you who have participated in these type of virtual events and put together the packages, what's been the range of cost? I know obviously with this one tonight, you had the different alcohol and everything, but I'm just curious, like a range of what you've seen per package.
I will say a lot of it comes down to how nice you want your box to be. I feel like Melinda picked a really nice box and had some nice, packaging on the inside. So that certainly starts to up your cost. I will just say, so during the slide presentation, the coffee kit that we sent, that was to our advisory council. We spent about $150 on the coffee maker and the coffee and the accessories. We spent about $100 on the packaging just to make it look beautiful. So you don't have to go that expensive, but that was an instance where we really wanted to really up our game. I would say on average, everyday things, we tend to stay in the $35 to $60 range because we do have compliance issues where if we spend more than $50 on certain customers or prospects, then we have to get special approval and we have to report that. So we try to stay under that. So snack packs, smaller events, if you're sending, just the glass and some accessories and asking them to provide the alcohol, that's okay. The other thing is there's a loophole. So those of you that deal with public and sometimes you can't even buy often a state or local official their lunch because they're not allowed to accept it. But if you put together a event and it's an event kit and not something that you're gifting them, you can ship that to their house and they could use it for the event and then you ask them to dispose of it afterwards. What they do with it afterwards is up to them. So a little bit of a loophole there if you're doing virtual events.
And I think that's the beauty of this type of event. I mean, you can really determine how much you have to spend. It's a virtual thing. I have a Zoom account, so I'm paying for that, but you can do a free Zoom if you want to or need to. And then, what you mail out is totally up to you. I mean, if your budgets are limited, you can do, very inexpensive things. I think it's going to tie in with your message, your audience for sure. How much you're spending on maybe someone who's looking at coming to work for your company might be different than, especially if it's, let's say, at the hospital, if you're wining and dining a doctor, even in person, you're going to spend more than you would if you were, wining and dining pretty much anyone else that would come in as an employee at a hospital. At least I would assume, it's not just the hospitals, it's everyone, you do based on who your audience is. And how important they might be to your organization, whether that's a new client or a possible employee. So I think that you would, sculpt around that. Yeah.
And there's not really a price you can put on employee retention, employee wellness, diversity, getting people to tune into the training and not only just be there and be logged in, but actually participate and have fun and walk away feeling mentally a little bit lighter. And a lot of those things are free, finding fun, creative ways, and then rewarding people. On our diversity day, we all got t-shirts. and ahead of time, we were allowed to pick the t-shirt design. So they had worked with a vendor and set up 3 different designs, and we could choose which one we wanted, pick our size. The shirts were mailed in advance, and then we wore them on our diversity and inclusion day. So that's all, you know, it was fairly inexpensive to do. It just required a lot of coordination to get those things put together ahead of time and to make sure that we had the shipping information. So my biggest tip to you is just plan enough time ahead, because you can do it on a slim budget. You can do a lot of things creatively with a small amount of money. You just need to allow for time to get your pieces in, gather your addresses, and do the shipping. It definitely makes the events more memorable. It makes people show up and actually participate, and people walk away feeling better about it.
Very cool.
I would second the longer time frames, because especially right now with COVID, there are a lot of mailings going out. A lot of mailings going out. I mean, and then, you know, you also have to keep in mind that just as COVID has hit all of our organizations at different ways, at different times, the same is true for people who are manufacturing the boxes and the cups and the everything else. So for instance, we had a mailing earlier, or late last year that we were doing, and we had planned on doing with the customer a imprinted box, a complete imprinted box. And you know, the supplier called us a week or 2 after we placed the order, I think it was, and said, "I'm sorry, we just got hit with COVID and our press people are out. We cannot fulfill this order." And so we had to punt and go with a regular box with a label on it, which is what you guys received today as well. Those are just labels. It's not an imprinted box. So you have to be open to moving in different directions right now with COVID, of course, but so many things are possible. It's an interesting thing for me, I think. Just how can you make things fun? You know, like all of us aren't, you know, I'm not on a Zoom a ton. I do here and there, but I'm sure many of you are on a lot. And so, you know, one more Zoom meeting you're groaning at, but if you know you've been sent something, I'm hoping the idea behind saying, please don't open your box until the event, was to hope that it would give you a little bit of a anticipation type of moment, you know? And so hopefully that was the case. Unfortunately, I had to spoil that, but but if you can do that, then, you know, that just makes it even more exciting. You know, I know that for myself, I'm on an email group and with other lady distributors across the United States. And we had that happen to us. One of our suppliers sent us all boxes and it said, "Do not open until event." And one of the ladies, you know, came on and said, "Oh my gosh, I get promotional products every day, and this is driving me crazy not being able to open this box. I can't wait to open the box," you know? So for us, I mean, we see them all the time, but we were all excited to just be able to rip open that box and see what was inside. So a little anticipation never hurts, and it's free.
Linda, when did you have to get your order in to the wine merchant to do this?
I talked to him probably about 3 or 4 weeks ago. It was actually a pretty easy thing in the end. You know, I talked with them and said, "This is when I want it mailed out." And, you know, we kind of backtracked from there and said, "This is when I need to purchase the alcohol." And he would have purchased it for me as well. But I purchased the alcohol and then took it to him. I purchased the bottles and took those to him. And then his staff, you know, went through and rebottled for us, and I came back and picked them up and then assembled everything. And so, you know, we can always do that for y'all as well if you need us to either go between there picking those items up and so on too. So that's kind of our thing that we have really been getting into lately, is doing fulfillment or kitting, depending on how you have heard that term. So packing the boxes, making sure that nothing breaks on the way or comes open on the way, those types of things. So you all noticed that the bottles all had, except for the tequila, because the tequila came pre-bottled, but everything else had a shrink wrap label on it, a shrink wrap collar on it. So you could, you know, we just want to make sure that those didn't come open in transit at all. And also give you guys, especially during COVID times, a little bit of extra, just knowing that they had been handled in such a way that you didn't have to worry about it. We're using masks, we're using gloves, we're making sure that those things are safe for you. So
Melinda, if you're doing the fulfillment on things like this,
sure.
are there minimum quantities that you see? I mean, could
Not
you
really.
do 3? Could you do? Okay.
We could on the packaging. On the promotional products, it would depend on what you order. If you're ordering inexpensive items, you may need to order 50 to 100 to 250 items. Maybe you're only sending 3, maybe you're only mailing 3. We do also offer now, we are working with name brand products, and many of those can be labeled as well. So if you want a JBL speaker with someone's name on it instead of your company name, you can do that. And we can make sure that each of the names get in the correct box. Probably all 4 of us would be checking every box as it goes out the door, but making sure that those are partnered up correctly. So yeah, it just depends. But some of the box places, even we have one box place that will do, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Teresa, 1 box. So if you really want to just really wow someone, we can make that happen. So yeah, it's available.
If we were doing more sessions, I guess what I'm thinking is I meet with agents once a week, different agents once a week. If I were to order 100 of something, would you be able to keep it at your office and box them and send them out as I needed them?
Sure, definitely. And Tom, I know you work with international, so we definitely need to have a long lead time on that and no fruit.
I like the coffee idea though. That's great because I'm usually meeting with them their morning, my night. So it might mean that I don't get a good night's sleep, but I just want, maybe I'll get a decaf or something.
Right.
I feel your pain on that one.
I bet you do.
And I just want to say that how many people here think that Melinda's box was plain? I mean, that it may have been inexpensive, but the blue color, and having that nice gloss to it and the sticker, it looked really, really sharp. So there's little things like that my years of working with Melinda, those are the things that she brings to the table, areas where I can save on my budget so that I can put it into other things like the glasses and like the cutting boards. So I want to just make you take back that statement that it was a plain, inexpensive box. It did not have that look to it at all. It looked really well done.
Thank you. Yeah, and that is a stock box. So, at Christmas time, those were hard to find. We had an order at Christmas time that was to have a blue box, and they were not to be found. They were being limited to 50 at a time that you could purchase. So, now it's no big deal. You can order them, but at Christmas time, it was a challenge to be able to get what we could get. But yeah, that's a gloss navy box, but it's a stock box. And so we just ordered stickers, which generally take about 3 to 5 days. So, some of those things can happen pretty fast. Now, if you've ever seen a box that has a foam insert and there's a special cutout place for each item that you're putting in there, that's going to take longer. It's a higher price point as well, but it is such a nice presentation piece. If you are really trying to wow someone, that is the way to go. It really jumps out as a class piece, so classy piece.